Okay, I had a question come in on a granny square pattern this morning, and it's called the flat granny square. And so I'm going to do a real quick tutorial here outside of our normal Friday videos, just so you guys can see what the question was and what it ends up being like. So in the granny square, you make the square and you're working around the round, so to speak, to make the squares. And then each granny square goes together to make the quilt. The granny square stitch itself, though, can be used in other versions. So the version that was asked about today in Messenger was the flat granny square. So I'm using a size H here. I'm just using some regular medium red heart yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and chain. When you're chaining, a good tip for the flat granny square is to chain in a multiple of 3. And I'll show you that here in a second. I'm just going to chain a little sample piece to show you this. So let's see how many I have here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So let me chain 2 more here. So I've got my chain of 3, or my multiple of 3 for my chain. So I'm just going to do this far to show you what the flat granny square looks like. To go up 1 stitch, because I want to keep these on my needle, I'm going to chain 3 extra ones. That's going to be like a double crochet on the end. And then I'm going to start my granny square into skip 2 and go into this one right here. So this is going to be the granny square stitch, which is 3 double crochets into the same stitch. So when you look back at this, this is 5 chains. I've skipped 2 chains and then 3 for a double crochet on the end. Then I've got my 3 double crochets into the same stitch for the granny square stitch. Then I want to chain 2 here. I'm going to skip 2 as well, and I'm going to put 3 double crochets into the next chain. Again, making that granny square triangle or shell, whatever you think it looks like, into this chain here. And you can see them kind of forming just like they do when you're working the rounds. Chain 2, skip 2, go into that third one and make your granny square stitch. Now, when you're putting multiple double crochets into the same stitch, that is an increase technically. So your pattern is naturally going to want to curve because you're increasing. What's going to keep it flat like this is giving it those chains that allow the stretch of the material to stay in a row. You're making enough space that the pull from those increases, because this is technically an increase, you put more than 1 stitch into the same stitch, and that's what an increase is. You have to have enough chain there to keep it flat, but not enough chain. If I put 3 or 4 chains in here, then this space up here becomes bigger than this space here, and that causes it to do this. So you want the chains to be even to allow that to stay flat. So chain 2 again, skip 2, and put your granny square stitch, which is 3 double crochets into the same square. And pull that out because it got caught on my needle there. Into this one here. So again, if you're just watching this or logging on, we're doing a flat granny square. We're skipping 2 and putting the granny square stitch into every third chain. You want a multiple of 3 when you first start out on your chain, and you want to do your granny square stitch and then a chain 2 at this point. I'll show you what we're going to do once we change rows. You're going to chain 2. You have 1 stitch here. You don't want a granny square into that last one. You're just going to do a double crochet to do your end. You've got a double crochet on the other end because you started out with a chain. So there is the flat granny square. See how they look just like when you're working them in the round and doing the square? and you've got enough chain that it's not curving. You don't have too much chain where it's starting to bubble, but you don't have too little where it's starting to curve. You have just enough. Okay, so now we're going to do the next row. We're going to turn. On the flat granny square, it's just like the regular granny square. You're going to work in these holes, but again, you're not working the round, so we're not turning. So here, we're going to chain 3. This is your edge. You're keeping your edge straight. You're going to granny square into your hole right here. That is 3 double crochets. That's the granny square stitch. 3 double crochets. Now you're just going to chain 1. From here on out, in between your granny squares, just chain 1. Go into the next granny square and put your 3, or the next hole, and put your 3 double crochets. Chain 1. Go into the next, whoop, drop my needle there. Go into the next hole. Put your granny square, which is 3 double crochets. Your granny square stitch, 3 double crochets into the same placement. Chain 1. Granny square. Which again, 3 double crochets into that opening. Chain 1. Granny square. Chain 1. You have 1 spot left, so granny square. This one, you're already at the end. Your edge is there. It's straight. So you're done. You're going to turn. You're going to chain 3. Just like on the front row. Here's your chain 3. Here's your chain 3. You're repeating this row here. But still, you're only going to chain 1 in between. So you're going to chain 1. Granny square into that opening, which is, again, 3 double crochets into the same opening. Chain 1. Granny square into the next opening, which is 3 double crochets into that opening. Chain 1. Again, 3 into the next opening. Chain 1. I'm going to let you see what this looks like once I get down the rest of the row. Again, this is just a small tutorial on how to do it. So I only chained, I think, about 15. So if you're doing a blanket and you've chained, 30 to 60, that's fine. I just want you to see what we're doing and how to keep it flat. The question was how to keep it flat, so that's what I'm trying to go over. So chain 1 and a double crochet into the end stitch. And then you're going to turn, and you would start by chaining 3 and putting a granny square into that one. But let me show you what this looks like here and how it keeps laying flat. There is what the flat granny square looks like. Just like the granny square, as if we were turning and we were doing the square and going around, around, around. But it stays flat. So the flat granny square. Now, what keeps it flat like this is those chains. Now, when you're working the granny square into the square, in the corners, you're chaining 3 because you're turning. So you put 3 chains so that it turns. On the sides, you're putting 2 chains because, again, you want it to stay flat. This is already flat. You're not turning. You're not working the round, is what they call it. You're just working off of a flat chain. So in a flat chain, on this first row, you're putting 2 chains in between here to get you started, because the chain itself has more tension than what your stitches have tension. Your stitches, since you're naturally doing an increase stitch, which again, an increase by definition is more than 1 stitch in the same stitch. So you're putting 3 double crochets into the same stitch. That's a natural increase. So what can tend to happen is it can do a rainbow. To keep it from doing the rainbow, you have to keep this chain, your first row, wide enough and stretched out enough to combat all of these increases. To do that, you chain 2 in between your granny square shells. But once you get into these rows, that tension is set. And when that tension is set, you don't have to have the extra chain in here. So you're just going to chain 1 on every row from now on, and the pattern will increase and lay flat. So that is how you get the flat granny square to stay flat on a stitch that is made for increasing and working the round, and you're trying to adapt it to a flat blanket. So that's why they call it the flat granny square. So I hope this helps answer the question of how to keep it from wadding up like this, or doing the rainbow, or kind of wrinkling, how to keep it flat. And like I said, in case you're wondering if it really is flat, it really is flat. So if you have any other questions, feel free to message the page or down in the comments. I love answering questions. I will either answer them in a post and show you pictures, or like this, I'll always do a video for you so that you can go back and watch it and hopefully learn along with me, and that will get you going a little bit easier on your project. So let me know if you have any other projects going and have those questions, because I love answering those for you, and I love seeing your projects. So keep crocheting, and we will check in next time. Thank you.